Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Foster versus Nova fight. If you are new around here though and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Foster is 21-2 with 12 KOs and Nova is 23-1 with 16 KOs. This fight is for the WBC World Super Featherweight title. Foster's last fight was a win via TKO in round 12 versus Hernandez, and Nova's last fight was a win via KO in round 3 versus Romero. This is Foster's first fight with Top Rank, signed with Top Rank. Foster's losses have come versus Chinea in 2016 and Taya in 2015, and Nova's loss came via KO in round 5 versus Ramirez in 2022. But to speak about what I've just been saying there, obviously this is WBC World Super Featherweight title. This is Foster's title. The fight which was his last, obviously, was that fight versus Hernandez, that very entertaining fight versus Hernandez, that fight which Foster was losing on the cards and managed to pull this stoppage out of nowhere really, and managed to defy the odds. And even though he knew he needed to get a stoppage, it's not normally that easily, but he managed to get a stoppage in the very last few moments of that 12th round. And you know, after the 11th round where both fighters were stunned and it was such an amazing round, to tip off that with the stoppage for Foster and the way that he did it, it made it for a very entertaining fight. And overall, it was a very entertaining fight. And you know, Foster has proven himself as a worthy champion now more than anything. And I feel like this is definitely a good fight to be made for him. And it's just a fight which, in my opinion, Foster definitely got to make sure that he's on his A game for, because Nova is somebody who, of course, he's coming off a KO win himself, and he's on a great run at the moment and is improved and has now gained a bit more momentum, moving up in weight and coming away from the defeat against Ramirez, which was quite a bad defeat for him, and it showed that he can be hurt. But like I say, he's improved from then and has moved up in weight from then and has become a better fighter from them and has looked more dialed in and more kind of up for every single fight since then. So you know, that defeat most definitely has brought out the best in him, and now he's deserving of this world title shot again, which he now has. And to speak about both as fighters, Foster, he's got good speed, he's a skillful fighter, he's shown now that he has heart and he's willing to dig deep, and he's also well conditioned in the process. He's not scared of anybody. He fights well on the inside, and he can also fight well at a mid-range. And in my opinion, he probably does his best work at a mid-range. I feel like he was struggling a little bit on the inside in the earlier rounds against Hernandez, but he can prove, and he has proven, that he can fight on the inside, just from being able to catch Hernandez with the counters, which, like I say, he counters well. And like I say, he is a good, solid defensive fighter who also, you know, does have a good attack and can flip momentum in the process. He moves well, leads with his jab, he will push his punches through, he gives his all, and like I say, he's well conditioned, and overall, a pretty well-rounded fighter, to be completely honest. I mean, there's definitely things about him which I'm going to mention in a moment which necessarily aren't amazing in his game, but, you know, he's a defensive fighter which has now proven that he can fight attacking as well, and he's willing to stand and trade with somebody, and he can succeed with somebody who is known to be really, really good at standing and trading, and has kind of been known to be a fearful guy, and a guy which a lot of people don't really want to face in Hernandez. And you know, he's managed to come through that and get the stoppage in the process, and really that has created a statement for him and created a name for him as well now, Foster. The negatives about him, I mean, he can be frustrated. Seemed like he did get frustrated a bit against Hernandez, and possibly into the earlier rounds to the middle rounds. That was probably why he was losing some of the rounds, because he was becoming frustrated by Hernandez just being in his face the whole time and not being able to kind of have any space from him. I mean, sometimes at close, when he doesn't have any space, you know, it can not see his best work from Foster, and he can, like I say, become frustrated, and his work can become a little bit sloppier at times, because Hernandez was so good at smothering him, and you know, he's not overly physical himself, Foster, so he couldn't really push off Hernandez for a lot of the fight, which was, I suppose, to an extent where that counter did come from into the later rounds. He finally got a bit more space because Hernandez was tiring, and then he managed to, you know, capitalise upon that. He can try and rush the fight a bit, rush to try and finish the fight. I feel like in the 11th round, that's kind of what hurt him to an extent, when he was just kind of, when he got him hurt, and then he just was trying to rush the fight, and I suppose to an extent pent out and let out all of that frustration which he had. he then got caught again, and then that's when the round flipped onto Hernandez's favour. But so, you know, there's definitely things there where he can get frustrated at times, and that leads on to a lot of things like I've been mentioning. He's not really known as a big puncher. Obviously, he's now shown that he can time and can counter well, but he's not really known as a big puncher. And so, you know, it's not really been something which he's always been kind of seen as, unlike Nova, who has been seen as quite a big puncher. And there's still question marks of how that last fight, being such a competitive fight and being a fight which Foster was losing and did have rounds where he was hurt, what would be the impact of that as a fight? Every fight leaves an impact on fighters, and that one most definitely would have left an impact on Foster, but we're just yet to see the actual impact it has left. Nova as a fighter, though, I mean, I think he's a bit more of an inside fighter. He fights relatively well at mid-range, but I think he does a lot of his best work on the inside, and so he's probably going to be wanting to be on the inside. And Foster's shown that he can sometimes fight opponents' fights now, and so if Nova can get on the inside, then that might not be the best for him. I would definitely recommend Foster to be the one on the outside, the one to be circling around the ring, the one to be out-moving Nova, because Nova has shown which, when his opponents do plant his feet, that he does get them out of there. He's going to be wanting to prove. Obviously, he's suffered that defeat, like I mentioned, and it was at a big stage at a world title level, and now he's returning back with that momentum. He's now most definitely going to be wanting to prove that he's now a new fighter since then. It's not just going to be a repeat of what happened last time. He's a strong puncher, he's fast, he's accurate, he sets up his shots well, and he's been setting them up better than what he used to. That uppercut in that last fight was very good that he set up. The shot variation is getting better and better with each fight. He's quite a physical fighter as well. He can counter well. He will unload his shots when he thinks he has you hurt, and is quite a good person at getting opponents out of there. And he does put his all into his shots in the process as well. So there's definitely going to be a lot of things which Foster's going to have to look out for defensive wise in this fight. He's shown that he has a good chin, Foster, now, but like I say, the impact of that last fight, how much is that going to play a factor? Nova as a fighter, negative wise, the chin, I mean, he's been hurt, like I say, against Ramirez, and he's been stopped quite badly against Ramirez, so the questions about that chin is still going to be there, as he hasn't really fought a top level guy since then. He can be hit, being in close, he can be hit. He's a bit slower, in my opinion, than the two of them. He starts off quite quick, but he does quite quickly then slow it down as well, and Foster is the one who, like I say, is well conditioned, so I would say that he's probably the one that can prolong his speed and get less tired throughout the rest of throughout most of the fight. He may try and force the fight a bit because he kind of has to be the one to get on the inside, in my opinion. So he could force the fight a bit, and that's when he could Foster could walk him onto counters. He has to close the gap, like I mentioned. He's got quite an open guard at times. He can rush in as well, similar to that of Foster at times. He can keep his jab out a bit too long and then get countered because he hasn't really got the tightest of guards. He hasn't got amazingly good head movement, and he does tire as well. So, you know, there's definitely defensive things there which are able to be capitalised on by Foster and his countering ability of Foster. It's just, like I say, what type of version of Foster we are actually going to see. If we are going to see a countering back foot version, or if we're going to see somebody who's going to be wanting to stand and trade in the middle of the ring, or just somebody who's going to back up onto the ropes and stand and trade there. Foster is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Foster will win via unanimous decision. I think he's probably going to have to weather a bit of a storm early on, but I think he's hopefully, in my opinion, going to be just moving on the outside and continuously doing that and picking off his shots nicely and countering Nova. It wouldn't even surprise me if he gets a knockdown on Nova at some point into the later rounds, and I think he could put on a bit of a boxing clinic if he is got the right game plan for this fight, and yeah, that's when I think he could win via unanimous decision. Then who you want to fight next? There's options. Navarrete is a big option. Obviously, he's fought quite a lot with Top Rank, so that's definitely somebody who's could be made and could be being set up for a big fight. Yakubov is somebody highly ranked in the WBC, so that could be another fight as well, which could make sense. Conceição is coming off the draw versus Navarrete. If they don't make Navarrete versus Conceição the rematch, then Conceição, who was also with Top Rank, could also be made for a good fight there. Or the winner of Rakhimov versus Nunes. I don't believe that either of them are signed. So, either of them could make for a good fight, even though that fight is the IBF World Title Eliminator. Like I mentioned in that prediction video, I don't necessarily know if that's going to mean that they're going to fight for the world title, the IBF World Title after that. So, they could fight Foster next. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video, did indeed like the video. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.